Sorry guys, I have a new system here and I'm still working the bugs out. Obviously. Is it even gonna work? Yes, just barely. Alright, let me kill the echo. Oh damn. Once again, I have forgotten my damn microphone, but I guess the audio is probably passable. I just wanted to jump on here. Actually, you guys, give me just 1 second. Let me see if I can grab those. Okay, that should be a little bit better. What's up, guys? Thanks for popping on. I hope you were able to check out the Book of the Law commentary. It's, you know, like I said in the description, there's a lot of verbiage, probably pretty excessive. But, you know, I've done this before where I felt like I had found a bone to pick with Crowley and then realized that something had just gone over my head. And when he's layering all of this, you know, different examples of subjectivity and how even our scientific standards are mutable, because, for example, if you go up into the mountains, the boiling point changes for water and, you know, all of this sort of stuff. But he's layering on all these levels of reasons why, you know, and different arenas where subjectivity can be detected, and I thought, you know, I don't even really see how this relates to this statement that every number is infinite. You know, what is this whole thing about subjectivity? And then it hit me that when we're talking about number, we're not talking about the hieroglyphs, as he said or wrote towards the end of that commentary. We're talking about fundamental existence itself. And so we have this microcosm, macrocosm thing, right? And so he's showing you how the all is in the all. That this subjectivity also is part of what gives rise to the infinity, the infinite potential that is contained in everything that happens in every place and every moment. And so, you know, when he's talking about how there's all these different variables and conditions that are subjective, it's kind of demonstrating how the subjectivity and the potential different interpretations and experience are cramming infinity into a single point, which is totally relevant to the discussion. He just never explicitly explains that, and that is essential to this kind of work, to these kind of teachings. The lips of wisdom are closed, but to the ears of understanding, right? So it's best if things are cryptic, if you don't spell things out totally and completely. In fact, when it comes to spiritual teachings or metaphysics, I think it's actually really detrimental and even doesn't work if you try to just put the writing on the board in totally plain language, because that is not what this type of understanding arises from. It arises from internal process. And so when you're able to, you know, sort of encode a greater teaching in that apparently excessive explanation or justification of subjectivity, you know, it's like planting seeds that have room and potential to germinate in the consciousness of the student or the reader or whatever it may be. And so it's actually beyond brilliant. And I think I'll probably go back and change the description and say, actually, I just am kind of dumb and didn't really get it at first. And that's another reason why I always come back to Crowley's stuff, you know. It is just extraordinary how over the years, you know, if you pick up the Book of Lies, for example, and you read it once, and then later on in your journey, you come back and you read it again, um, it unfolds more and more layers of meaning for you, and that will continue throughout your life as long as you continue to grow. And so, there are a couple of things from that commentary on commentary about commentary, that I wanted to make some commentary on. Commentary, because commentary. Uh, I'm just kidding, seriously. Okay, so I think maybe I already did talk about it though. The Kabbalion and the way that it states the all is in the all. And also, you know, if we take into consideration Terence and Dennis McKenna's holographic mind theory that they presented in the book, I think it was True Hallucinations, and my microphone just died. So I hope you guys can still hear me. Let me go get a different one. Sorry guys, there's just so much going on right now getting ready for all of these wonderful visitors. I'm super stoked about that today. I was running around in the town, hanging out with Lighter Monkey and the Capuchin troop, the Warani people running around everywhere, the women carrying their spears around, and I actually, just a quick divergence, I saw another proof of the ludicrousness of the Bible, and it was basically that there were like 9 and 10-year-old Warani children running around naked in the Garden of Eden. And I thought, huh, kind of obvious that the people in the Garden of Eden didn't suddenly become ashamed of their nakedness, because they're still here and they're still naked and they're not ashamed at all. So kind of have a problem there, I think, regarding this fairy tale. But so where were we? The all in the all, the holographic theory of mind of the McKenna brothers. And, you know, there's even some physical basis or physical version of this sort of holographic mind, that the brain itself is sort of a crystal hologram. And so, you know, we have this theme that runs through so many systems of mysticism. It's the reason that magic works. It is the reason the universe exists, in my opinion. This revelation that is so mind-numbingly obvious, I guess, when you really realize it. That the all is indeed mind, and that the all is indeed in the all, right? The whole is in the parts. And so our quest as people that are trying to use scientific illuminism, that are employing scientific illuminism to advance ourselves spiritually, that we're trying to have a syncretic approach where science and spirituality can dovetail. And we are, you know, as Crowley said, using the methods of science with the aim of religion. We place no reliance on virgin or pigeon. So this statement that every number is infinite, and when you realize that what happens when you divide a number by 0 and you just get this string, a decimal point with this infinite string of numbers, there's, you know, just so much to unpack there. But there it is, the all in the all. Because, you know, if something is infinite, there can be no other things, right? Everything is in there. So that in and of itself is really remarkable. And it's also really remarkable when you're able to make a statement that has such density of substance and meaning and potential to awaken, I guess. And here's the thing. The Book of the Law said, I give certainty, not faith. And I've always felt like that is so essential. And almost no one has the courage, you know, and I don't mean to be condescending or insulting in this way, Um, but that's kind of how I see it. People don't have the courage to really maintain a practice of critical thinking and skepticism. When you begin your spiritual journey, I think the biggest thing that people do is that they just start adopting alternative narratives, but they're not really doing anything. And we should probably get deeply into that. That's really been on my mind today, just watching it happen. Um, But before I diverge too much, let's flesh out this every number is infinite thing a little bit. And then zero. What a marvelous naughty naught is. Even our glyph that we have come to use for zero contains an infinite line that just goes around forever and ever, the circle, and then within it there is nothingness. But it can be employed to reveal infinity within another being or object or number. So we are really getting to the essence of the idea of retaining scientific method with our spiritual practices and not losing either, right? There, we are able to drag science and spirit into this conversation without destroying either. Really quite remarkable. And the Book of the Law also says your success will be your proof. And I think that statements like, every number is infinite, there is no difference, and the revelations that come from that, and the demonstrable truths behind it, it's the Book of the Law is a crazy fucking thing, and it's also extraordinary and perfect. That if you don't have the tools to analyze it properly, it's a bunch of fucking gobbledygook. It's really easy. I can see how a lot of people have looked at this and just gone, man, these Crowleyanity people or whatever, Thelemites, what a bunch of fucking morons. This book is just gibberish. Of course it is, because everything contains its contradiction. So, it has to be. It's the perfect way for it to express these simple, elegant truths. And again, it's essential that they are sort of encrypted to a degree, because this process of bringing the actual knowledge to fruition, this is real gnosis. And I would even go so far as to say, and Crowley would agree with this, that it's not even about giving Crowley credit for doing this, because it is his subconscious, or it is something other than him that is doing all of this. I've always said that, one of the ways that you can sort of identify music and art and literature that comes from this truly interdimensional part of our being is that it always has these layers of meaning. Maynard James Keenan from Tool is extraordinarily good at doing this with his lyrics. There's a Pussifer song that is ostensibly about some beautiful girl, and he talks about how no matter how many times he goes to her, she always sucks him dry. And, what is that line? Sinners and saints, devils and heathens alike, she'll eat you alive, and still you'll cry to be back in her bosom to do it again. She'll make you weep. You know what I mean? And so it's that kind of thing where there's this double, triple, quadruple entendre that is stacked into this stuff. And, as an artist myself and a person that attempts to create on that level, and probably I think I've succeeded at least a few times, it is like these things are alive. They create themselves. The only songs that I've ever been content with that I've written happened in 2 minutes. They're just there. And, the other musicians, when they created their parts, it just fell out of nowhere. They just had them. Even though in one case the song was ridiculously sophisticated, it's like the drummer had heard it 10,000 times and just played it with me the first time we ran through it. And that's, I think, we are getting way off base though. Right, that's all good and well. The other thing that I wanted to share, because I, for some reason, included this in the description, is what I think the real fundamental secret in terms of mechanism and how we can apply this knowledge, the most powerful thing that you can know about magic. And this is the kind of stuff that people have died over. You know, there have been people that would pay fortunes for this kind of information, and it's incredible because it's really, I think, just so simple and plain and obvious that that fact is probably the reason why almost everyone misses it, you know? And this is something that's been on my mind a lot for a couple of years, and it has to do with electromagnetic waves and our pineal gland and our will, I guess. And you know, I'm saying all the time that there has to be a physical mechanism, some magic in the sense of telepathy and precognition and sort of manifesting things to a certain extent. Wow, these just died too. Makes no sense. I charged everything. That distracted me. Oh, in the sense of like willing things to happen, it is all real and true, but there is some kind of mechanism that allows these things to occur, that doesn't violate any of the laws of the universe, any natural laws. That can't happen. Possible is balanced by impossible, you know, and this is another error that most people make when they get involved with magic, thinking that magic can do things for them that it can't, and then you don't make the proper preparations, and you it's also a reason why people don't think there's any sort of God or consciousness. They ask God to do ridiculous things that couldn't happen, and then when nothing happens, they think, oh well, there must not be a God. Ego comes into play as well there, because I think that, you know, saying I tried magic and it didn't work and therefore I don't believe in it is kind of like saying, you know, I tried to build a space shuttle and failed, so no one can. It's just like the dumbest goddamn thing I've ever heard. You know what I mean? It's just because you can't accomplish something doesn't mean that it's not real. But anyways, I'm digressing a bunch again. I think that Terence McKenna's idea of like attractors in hyperspace is good, and we are those. Our brain is absolutely loaded with magnetite, and you know, I'm sure you guys all have some fundamental understanding of how physics and you know, electromagnetic waves and this sort of stuff, how important it is to so many of the systems that give rise to creation, including our consciousness. And you know, this idea that we get from several different schools of mysticism that consciousness is what originally compelled the chaotic energy in the primordial stew to order and to symmetry. You know, if we assume that as a basis of you know, our metaphysics, and continue that to apply to our own consciousness in micro, right? In microcosm, macrocosm. We are sort of like consciousness magnets, right? And it literally is magnetite and electromagnetic energy that facilitates the ability for our will to sort of extract the experiences that we want from the energy around us. And so if you align your individual will with a collective will, that attractor in hyperspace, right? There are magnets of different sizes. And so this is how you really can become extremely powerful. There was a time in my life that, you know, unfortunately I sabotaged it because I got my processes out of order. I didn't do the healing first, which is what you have to do, and then you you know, need to get all the rest of the stuff figured out. I did it in the opposite order, but I'm still alive and we're still moving along, so we'll see where this all goes. You know, it's not over, but that's, you know, my more recent history, I guess. But at one point, I had this down to the degree that I had described. You know, I need a woman this age from this type of family that's willing to do this and this and this, and I want her hair color to be this, and then I need this drummer, and it would all just appear around me. And really to an absolutely mind-boggling extent. I mean, people in my vicinity that were watching this happen were bug-eyed more often than not, I think. And I really think that the reason that I was so able to compel the chaotic energy to into compliance with my will and directives is that it was in line with the collective gestalt. You know, my general impulse was genuinely to elevate consciousness without any other agenda. As Crowley said, you know, pure will, unassuaged or uninfluenced by lust of result, is in every way perfect. And so this is this is about doing the thing for the love of doing the thing, to discover your higher purpose, your true will, and then to constrain every thought, every deed, every breath to that purpose. And then if you are, this is why, you know, people on the left-hand path are really fucking themselves over and don't realize it. You know, you don't want to be all left-hand path or all right-hand path. You don't want to be, you know, you don't want to do that to yourself. You don't want to restrict yourself. You don't want to commit to any dogma or doctrine anyways, ever, no matter what. It's not what this is about. But so that's it, basically, you know, and when I was doing this stuff, and I mean, I did some really specific manifesting. I mean, I wanted Dark Star Orchestra, the world's greatest Grateful Dead cover band, to teach classes, and I said this to my then wife, and a week later, she found something online about this Dark Star Orchestra High School, one time only, happening 2 weeks after I requested this. You know, it got really crazy. And so there are some conditions, though. The things that you are willing have to be possible. You know, they have to be within the realm of reason. People get frustrated because they try to do this with money, and they discover that it's extremely difficult to make great piles of money appear out of nowhere. It doesn't matter how powerful your magic is, and it doesn't matter how much your will is aligned with the collective will. If you don't have the ingredients to put in your cauldron, then you're not going to create the thing, you know what I mean? If I don't have ayahuasca, if I don't have bee copy and chacruna or something, I can't just put daisies and lemongrass in a cauldron and create ayahuasca. It just isn't going to happen. People just have selective perception almost to a terminal, well, actually totally to a terminal extent. Because, you know, Aleister Crowley in Magic and Theory and Practice, he explains all this in perfectly plain English, and I think the overwhelming majority of people that read that book completely ignore it. You know, he says, so if it is my magical will to write a book, you know, I must invoke spirits called publishers and magical tools such as a pen, and I must make invocations, the words that I'm writing up on this page in the language that is understood by the people who I wish to communicate with. You know what I mean? That you have to do all of that shit and connect with the universal mind and purify all of your trauma and develop all this discipline and willpower. You know what I mean? Like, you still have to do all that stuff. And that's, I think, what a lot of magicians think. They're going to get into magic and they're going to short circuit all of these processes, or they're going to take shortcuts. You know, it's true that mastering your consciousness and understanding all of the things I've been talking about in this video will accelerate your ability, assuming that you are successful in truly discovering your true will or higher purpose. This is a huge problem for people. If you are, um, you know, a painter, but your ego has you convinced that you're an actress, that's your magic's never gonna work. It's never gonna work. You am what you is what you am. Cow don't make ham. You ain't what you're not, so see what you got. Uh, that's one of the things that you have to come to terms with. You cannot become something you're not. But if you are truly successful in connecting with your deepest self, your higher purpose, you will find that the support that comes from the universe is uncanny. That time is not, time is naught. And so preparations are sort of being made in a sense, well before anything occurs to you, it seems to me. By the way, you guys, while I'm thinking about symmetry, because this is part of what we're talking about, I think, I'm not totally convinced that we're willing anything. Sometimes I think that when we experience this uncanny homeostasis between our internal being and the external being, or the external world, same difference. Um, what really is happening is that it's just an experience of the symmetry that's sort of inherent in the design of this thing, right? And so last night, microcosm, macrocosm, right? I was reading about this thing that astrophysicists have noticed over decades now, but really it's like indisputable at this point, that galaxies that are way, 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 way too far apart to have any influence on each other are definitely moving perfectly in tandem. Um, and so, of course, they're saying like maybe this is some kind of macro entanglement, uh, but I'm pretty sure that this thing I've been kind of fixated on with symmetry is the actual answer, and that they've observed it in the like macro of all macros. Uh, and it's really funny to watch them kind of scramble for explanations without invoking design, intelligent design. Um, it's funny that people, you guys, you gotta have a subtle mind in order to survive this terrain, I guess is the best way that I can put it. Um, because if you're just black and white, you're never gonna get it. You're never gonna get it. You have to be able to see that there is atheism and there's religion, and then there's this thing in the middle, where even this consciousness that has created the universe could be creating itself as the universe is created. Uh, it's really surprising to me the lack of sophistication that a lot of people who apparently have very sophisticated minds, physicists and astrophysicists and whatnot, sort of demonstrate when it comes to these kind of subjects. All right, so AMA, you guys, there's 11 people. Does anybody have any questions or want to take this conversation in some kind of direction other than, I'm spiraling out at this point. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, don't forget that there are still a couple of long 6 to 8 week apprenticeship spots open here today. I went into the who is Iwas? Okay, that's a good one. Let me finish my pitch real quick. I went into the rooms and I just realized, like, wow, this is so nice. The one apartment room that we have, there are like this crazy tree here. I can't remember what it's called. It might actually be kapok, because it's just insane, the shape of it. And it almost looks like giant ayahuasca, and the tables are made of it, the beds are made of it. You know, J, JD or JP? Sorry, I can't remember. I think it's JD, right? JD. Your room, I was gonna send you video, and I couldn't attach it to the email. So maybe if you send me a friend request on Facebook, that's Facebook banned me again too, by the way, guys. I'll send you that video. But I was looking at the room and just thinking like, man, this is just incredible here, you know? And the rooms are totally enclosed in screen, so you can see the jungle all around you in every direction except for one, where the door and the wall is, and the Napo River behind. And we're just going to be working on the LBRP in the middle pillar and drinking ayahuasca and San Pedro with Quechua and Shuar and me. And we are going to learn to combine all of these systems in order to make a sort of super catalyst for consciousness, and it's going to be awesome. So a couple of long apprenticeship spots open, and you can come for a week, you can come for a couple days. You can actually, as long as we have a few rooms open, you can even just come rent a room and not take part in any of the workshops. So email me if you're interested in that. And so why does Facebook ban me? Facebook has banned me. Man, you should actually see the list of reasons, the things that they said were misinformation. Pretty crazy. The last one said your post contained a picture that was also in a post that had misinformation. So we've moved your posts lower in people's feeds for 90 days. So another thing they did is that they disabled Facebook ads on my partner's page, right? So even if you're associated with me too closely, they're disabling your ability to advertise. And it is just killing me. I mean, it's making it difficult for me to, like, for example, I can't do Facebook ads. Maybe I can do it. One of you guys volunteered, so I can advertise the retreats. But they're really, hell no, you can't do anything about it. Okay, so you're asking about IWAS. IWAS, interestingly, is like I noticed that right away. And it's, in one sense, Crowley's original incarnation. He called it the solar phallic Lucifer, his holy guardian angel, his higher self. But if you are really going to be real about stuff, and this is crazy, the OTO, right, the Ordo Templi Orientis, they insist that you accept the book of the law, but Crowley never fully decided whether or not it came from his subconscious or not. So it seems really crazy to me that they would do that, because Crowley didn't accept it. So why would you force people in order to join your organization, you know? But so the simple answer is that it's light, it's the sun. You know, there's a reason why soul and soul are almost the same word, and the letter U, which is also you, is the difference. It's really quite incredible. It's that sort of thing, I think, is what Albert Pike meant when he said the true scripture is writ large upon the land for those that can see it. Or the Jesus variation where he said that, you know, that for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, you know, that sort of thing is like the writings on the wall, signs, symbols, hints, clues, the writings on the wall, but the rest is up to you. How do you get here? Take a right in Miami and then continue through the ocean for like 1,200 miles, and you'll hit Peru, and then hard right to get to Ecuador. Send me an email. The email's in the description. Saturn and the sun, very, very heavy elements. It's really amazing how all of this stuff communicates, basically. I was looking at the Kabbalistic tree of life today and kind of contemplating what you're talking about, the relationship between Saturn and the sun, Saturn as the teacher and the sun as the harmonizer. And it really hit me that I have noticed that the tree of life is a remarkable I don't really want to call it a glyph. I mean, it's a machine almost. It's a sort of calculator, a filing cabinet, a processor, a CPU, almost. And it just really hit me how it's incredible that after all these years of working with this stuff and contemplating these things, I will still notice new relationships, or, you know, staring at the tree of life will catalyze some process that results in a new revelation. It really is just an infinite process, and it really doesn't get old. There are times where it can be stagnant. I've been stagnant for a number of years, actually, up until the recent. But, you know, it's once you get the waters moving again, there's all sorts of new stuff in there. Okay, so we talked about ayahuasca a little bit, I guess. Also, another thing that I've thought about ayahuasca is that it's sort of like the male counterpart to Pachamama. Their personalities, you know, the ayahuasca spirit that people call Pachamama, um, and you know, taking into consideration that there's good evidence that a lot of what people perceive about this spirit behind ayahuasca is projection, that comes from expectations, because a lot of people seem to think that ayahuasca wants to turn you into a vegan pacifist. And if you look at the tribes that consume ayahuasca, some of them, there's nothing vegan or pacifist about them. I mean, the Shuar legend is that they shrunk heads. They would actually take the head of their enemy off, remove the skin, take the skull out, and then use a combination of minerals and heat and water to shrink both, and then put them back together and sew the eyes, nose. And, you know, the legend is that Pachamama taught them how to do this. I think that what ayahuasca does, while we're on the subject, is that it helps us to adapt to our environment. So whatever the circumstances are of our environment, that's what it's going to adapt us to. It doesn't care if you eat meat. People say, oh, well, you won't have an experience if you eat red meat. Guess what, guys? I mean, I'll do it live. I'll eat a steak and then drink a cup of ayahuasca. And there will be nothing wrong with my experience. I will not fail to have visions. I will not be punished. It'll be just like a vegetable, post-vegetable. I'll vomit more because there's a bunch of crap in my stomach, but I mean, it's just not real. But so, ayahuasca, you know, if you look at how nature is, if you've ever seen a tiger attack victim, you know, nature is not like this cuddly, gentle, loving thing that, you know, people really, when they connect with their spirituality, you know, people really want to become all light and fluffy and believe that that's the real fundamental truth of the universe. And in my opinion, that's just half of it. And it's not really possible to make real progress and attain real enlightenment without understanding the actual truth. And, you know, there are parts in that book where ayahuasca is just absolutely brutal and violent and aggressive. And it is exactly like what I would imagine the actual voice of nature would be like if it was speaking through a person. So that's another thing that I think about ayahuasca. You know, I've never seen ayahuasca. I think that what that is like Crowley's personal, okay, let's go even deeper with this. I once had an ayahuasca vision that was being narrated by Pachamama, speaking of Pachamama, and I had been fixated on the Lucifer myth for many years prior to this. And she said, you know, I can explain that to you if you'd like. It's not, these beings aren't actually beings, you know, it's not really like that. But there's this, like, you could think of like what people call source, and the actual sun could be thought of as a reflection, and the zodiac around it. I talk about this a lot. And the zodiac is sort of like a dial, but on the energetic plane, these would be like filters of consciousness. And so you, speaking of me, are Lucifer, in the sense that you are an embodiment or an avatar of this consciousness that has this drive. Its true will is to be like a hollow tube and bring down fire from heaven to illuminate your fellow man. That's what that thing that people call Lucifer really is. It's just a frequency, or one of the formats of consciousness. And so what you have, just like a fingerprint, is that when this beam passes through a filter of an individual human, and it is molded and influenced by their genetics, their experiences, the experiences of their ancestors, you get a spiritual projection that Crowley called its higher self, or Iwas, or the solar phallic Lucifer. So that's what that is, and I don't think that Iwas would appear to me as in the same way that it appeared to Crowley. Also, I've heard from numerable people, numerous people, that they've seen my like spirit animal, and random strangers. This is another story I've told a million times on this channel, but that I would assume is my Iwas, and it doesn't look anything like Crowley described Iwas. It's androgynous, if not female, which is interesting. And it has horns, but it's not a demon. It's very beautiful and benevolent. It just happens to have horns, like a gazelle has horns, or, and I think she is probably the pronoun that would be appropriate. But I also think that it's the same archetypal energy that was passing through Crowley that gave expression to this Iwas. So I guess the short answer is I don't think I would encounter Iwas in the way that Crowley did, and I wouldn't use that name to describe it if I did. Well, I mean, everything is just light, Of course that's true, but it's everything is light. What Lucifer is really actually such a useful sort of concept in terms of a metaphysical model, just because of what the name means, light bearer. Matter is light in a standing wave, but if you think of the concept of bearing something, you're carrying it, and so when light reflects on matter, it's bearing the light. And so that is like one aspect of this being, and it's how we sort of relate the concept of the light bearer to the demiurgos, which is the matter that has trapped the light in the lower realm of Malkut, the realm of matter of Yaldabaoth. But it's also the sun, like the literal sun. And these mythologies have a lot of really obvious allusions and references to the sun itself. And there are other layers to this, so it's really an extraordinary thing, especially when you consider that it's complete bullshit. As far as like any kind of like biblical source goes, Lucifer does not exist. There's no Lucifer in the Hebrew Bible. It's Ben Hillel, which is like son of the morning. The line actually just says howl, son of morning. There is no. What happened is that the guy that wrote the book of Exodus, Ezekiel, excuse me, had a political opponent named Saint Lucifer, and so he's just using this guy. He needed a bad guy, I guess, and he just used his political opponent's name and inserted it there in place of Ben Hillel. It's not a real thing. It was never a real thing. It's just this. It's a joke almost. but it has utility as a symbol, and in terms of consciousness and energy, it does have some utility as a form of expression, in my opinion, anyways. Okay, so what do you mean by what is the correct translation for Adonai and the Tetragrammaton? Um, the Tetragrammaton is no one knows how to pronounce it. It's the unpronounceable, unspeakable name of God. It is the reason why we're not supposed to say fuck, shit, damn, cunt, dick, hell, shit. Um, I, I can't think of any more four-letter words I'm not supposed to say. But that's why, because if you were to accidentally pronounce this word, the universe would explode, because the same vibration that created it is the one that will destroy it. It creates a full circle, and there were legit Hebrew mystics back that obviously that knew what was up, and so I think people have taken this a little bit too literally. And also, the word is not 4 letters; it's a 4-letter glyph that represents the word. So this weird superstition about not saying 4-letter words in case they happen to be the Tetragrammaton is completely ridiculous, obviously. I mean, but it's not even a 4-letter word. It might be a 72-letter word, which is a whole different story. Um, but okay, so there's that. And then each of the, excuse me, I'm still getting over COVID again. Um, each of the letters represents an element, and mind-blowingly, each of the Hebrew letters is a glyph of something, right? So like Dalet is a door, Gimel is a camel, Bet is a house. So it's also a number, and then it's a letter or a sound. So it has this triune thing going on, which all holy things have these layers. Like, weren't we talking about that with like Tool lyrics or something like 30 minutes ago? Um, so, okay, so this Yod, the first letter, and it should be written backwards, by the way, but the Yod, that is like the impetus, the catalyst, looks just like a sperm. And I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail into why that is so mind-blowingly insane, but because I'm going to make a video about it eventually. But it's the Tetragrammaton is fucking crazy. It's true. Okay, so each one of those is an element. And so these saying Jehovah or Yahweh or Yahweh, what all of this stuff is just totally a perversion of this. You're not supposed to try to say the name, first of all, and those have nothing to do with the sound that it's supposed to represent. But just to demonstrate how clear it is that there's something going on with Hebrew, and this is why we use it in the Western occult tradition, ubiquitously. A little bit of Latin, a little bit of Greek, but mostly Hebrew. If you take the letter Shin, which is fire, and you place it in the center of the Tetragrammaton, it becomes a 5-letter symbol, the Pentagrammaton, right? And so what does the pentagram, the inverted pentagram, represent? It represents the descent of light or consciousness into matter. If you turn it up the other way, it represents the redintegration of said light or consciousness or matter back into light or consciousness, right? So, Pentagrammaton, you descend the spiritual fire, which is what Shin represents, and then if you pronounce, now what you have is the 4 elements animated by spirit, and it's Yoshua, which is Savior. Your success will be your proof, I guess. I mean, that is just like really fucking mind-blowingly crazy. And it's also true and demonstrable. So Gnosis is a Luciferian idea. Yeah, I mean, the Gnostic Luciferian Gnosis, that's really the only real kind in a certain sense. The original Gnostic heretics that were burned in the basements of those castles, it was because they noticed that the serpent told the truth and it was Jehovah that lied. And they had the audacity to point that out. And so if you equate the serpent with Lucifer, which is not even in the book, but the church did, then what you have is people that are saying this serpent Lucifer was actually telling the truth, and the evil one is actually the God of the Old Testament. And so you are a threat to the church then, and you're burned alive. Yes, do hit the like button, you guys. Also support us if you can on Patreon. You can access our secret streams. Last time I talked about the 28th degree of Freemasonry. I need to send you the link, Fernando. Night of the Sun, or Prince Adept. And it was a really good one. Commentary on the chapter in Albert Pike's book, Morals and Dogma. So that kind of stuff we talk about in the secret stream stuff I don't want to say to the public. And if you want to offer one-time support, there is Zelle, PayPal, email, and cryptocurrency address all in the description. Also, I'm trying to raise money to get random dogs help here. So if that's something you care about, you can help with that when you contribute to the channel. You're helping with that. Today, the starving dog walked onto the property and there's a hole in its back like that big, full of worms and eggs and shit. Really horrific. Such a sweet dog too. So, you know, I was thinking we're here trying to do this work to heal people, and you know, if we have some success, I had already planned to try to put something back into the community. As it is, we're barely breaking even though, so it's not easy for us to do this kind of thing. But our hope is to load this dog into a taxi, take it to Tana, and drop it off at a vet and have the wound cleaned and sewed. So, you know, just know that if you're supporting us, you're supporting that kind of stuff, because that's what we do. Yeah. Okay, guys. Yeah, I do Morals and Dogma for my patrons, poo-poo. And I think I have done a little bit on this channel, like maybe a chapter somewhere. So any more questions or anything you guys want me to talk about? I do need to eat some dinner. I think we're gonna make fish egg mitos. So the river fish are full of eggs at the moment. And so when you go to the market, there's tons of eggs, and you wrap them in a leaf from a certain plant and cook them in the leaf, and the leaf gives them a certain flavor. And my focus here is to feed people things that are really good for the brain. And so we have cacao juice, which is incredible, and if you've never tried fresh cacao, you're really missing out. It's not chocolatey. That happens after you roast and dry and ferment the seeds and then crush them and do all that stuff. It's actually like a tropical fruit, and so if you squeeze the white pulp into a cup, you get this like white liquid that has caffeine and vitamins and serotonin boosting compounds and all kinds of amazing stuff. So we're drinking a lot of that, eating a lot of fish eggs. There's a plant or a fruit called the bojoro, which is supposed to be really good for memory. So yeah, our focus at this retreat is eating tons of brain boosting stuff, including fish eggs wrapped in a leaf of a plant and cooked over an open flame. Okay guys, I don't see anything coming up in the comments, so I'm gonna sign off. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Please do hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon, and I'll be back with another installment of my ayahuasca masterclass, which I'm going to continue to call that, because man, I posted on Enrica's account, of course, because I'm banned from Facebook again, uh, in one of the ayahuasca groups, and this guy watched the whole video and just made this absolutely scathing review of it, where he didn't actually cite anything that I had said that wasn't true, or, you know, no specific points of contention. Um, uh, and that was one of the things that bugged him. And I'm just thinking, you know, all I meant by that is that it's a ton of information, and if you're not really interested in knowing everything there is to know about ayahuasca, you don't want to watch this video. So I don't know what the fuck that guy's problem was. And if you're watching, man, your ass hat is like oversized. You need to get a smaller ass hat at least, because it's too big and it's pooping everywhere. I don't like it. All right, guys.